All right, so spare parts, well, all the parts. These are the factory Formula Mazda radiators, shrouds, guide plates, and mounts. That's another bulkhead for the front of the chassis. These are radiators from a Formula Continental, which provide a little bit better cooling, but I was intending on mounting them differently, so that's why I bought those. They would come with it. All the wiring is in the tote. It's K26 turbo, tuned ECU that's said to be like an RS2 setup, and 440cc injectors. Got multiple other K24s to choose from, all good. K&N filter. There's spare shock mounts, one for each side of the rear, and then an older style one that has a secondary plate that makes it look like the others. There's the other brand new single Wilwood 4-piston and another set of pads for it. There's a set of pads for a regular Formula Mazda brake setup that are brand new for both sides. There are all three master cylinders are brand new Wilwood units. There are 2 rotor hats. So the Formula Atlantic brakes that I have on the one corner there fit the same rotor hat as the factory Formula Mazda parts did. So you can run just the regular Girling brake calipers and Formula Mazda rotors, and all you'd have to do is buy 2 more rotor hats. Oil cooler, timing belt cover, other power steering accessory belt, guide. There are jigs to be able to make new lower rear control arms, and this jig is to make new #1 shear plate mounts, which when assembled would go in kind of right up there from chassis to that bolt. There are rear sway bar lengths and front sway bar lengths, along with the proper bolts for the front pivots. Some extra springs. It is a spare rear hub and front hub. You can see right there the cost of just a hub. Piece of the intake manifold that I planned on putting with the rest of the dual plenum intake I was making. Your rear sway bar, bunch of E-band clamps, the boost gauge that goes in there. I was thinking about mounting the shocks differently, so there's a whole pivot setup and bearing and stuff. More clevis ends for steering. Here's all the little supporting pins I machined up to basically, these plates go on like so on top and bottom. You got your 3 mounting points, and then these would go in there to support the open area. Don't have to do it. The shocks are mounted up as they should be. 1 intercooler for a side mount if I went that way. Another intercooler that fits perfectly. Right center in the back like that. Spare front A-arm, spare wheel center, the swirl pot. Got a factory 3B flywheel, a Whiten 3B flywheel, a pressure plate for either of them. Have to find a disc, the fuel cell, the wing I made. It's got all the stuff to make it, to be able to plumb it correctly. You know, have to run fuel lines, have to figure out your pump. Over there on the floor is all the factory internal pieces for where the seat is. The one I started making may not be the greatest. The shifter works, but the linkage rod should be made out of steel and have new joints purchased. Otherwise, all your gauges and switches are there. It's just a matter of wiring. You would need a fire suppression system to be able to go on track, but you got the pull cord there. It's got all the brake bias bars and everything still connected to the brake pedal. It's a brand new steering column and quick release. And it's a SPA quick release, just like they ran in the Formula Mazda series. So, steering rack is in there. All your suspension components are there. All the axle stubs are there. Made custom billet Ackerman blocks. Though you could run the factory Formula Mazda type stuff, which is just a 3-piece block and 2 plates. It'll need custom axles made, but I had adapters made, the small cup right there that fits. It's a VW. I'll have to remember and look up the type of joint it is, but it's what they use in all the like dune buggies and everything like that. It's got one of the widest ranges of motion without binding, which is why it was chosen. The exhaust manifold fits, but it was made to route the exhaust underneath to mount the turbo on the left side to help even out weight distribution. And I got it almost there and then had to cut it apart to use for other stuff. Otherwise, all suspension components are there and bolted up. All the shear plates are there and bolted up. All the seat belt mounts are there. It'll need new seat belts. It'll need mounts created for the transmission. The engine comes out, you disconnect the engine from transmission and then slide the trans back a couple inches and then you can pull the motor out. Radiator plumbing will all have to be created. Lots and lots and lots of finish welding. But it's essentially a roller. Just need to buy some grade 8 hardware for certain parts of it and revise a few things. There's the 3rd brand new master cylinder, the front mount, it's where the battery mounts, the front sway bar is there. Somewhere I've got the rear sway bar mounts or some other front sway bar mounts, one of the two. All the suspension is good. I had to make custom top hats for the JRZ coils because they didn't come with them. And that runs the normal 2 1/4 inch spring that the Formula Mazdas run and a bunch of other open wheels run. This was what I was coming up with for Aero, which was a full underbody tunnels and dual plane front wing. And I had big side plates to go down to the rear diffuser. And all of that was cut out to go around the suspension as close as possible. The rear cowl does not fit no matter what you do, especially with a factory intake manifold, which you could run on here. It would just be a little difficult and probably good if you got a forward-facing intake manifold or maybe even just using AAN intake mani. You know, that's all personal choice when it really comes down to it. You'd need a seat in a bag, which most open wheels run. You know, it's like a chemical thing. You throw it in there, you sit it in it for an hour or 2. It forms around you, creates a perfect seat. Otherwise, I'd really have to talk to somebody in person to go over every single little detail. Hope it helps.